Coming up now on your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, New Japan Pro Wrestling executives addressed the Kota Ibushi situation at a press conference on Friday. We've got an injury update on Kenny Omega and an update from the Best of the Super Juniors. Subscribe to Spoiler-Free Wrestling for all your wrestling news. Just a warning that today's main story deals with the issue of self-harm and suicide. Please be aware of that before continuing. New Japan Pro Wrestling executives held a press conference on Friday to address the comments made on social media by Kota Ibushi. They first addressed the issue of Ibushi appearing for Taka Michinoku's Just Tap Out promotion on March 4th and the text messages between Ibushi and Kikuchi that occurred as a result. Representative Director of New Japan Pro Wrestling Takami Obari had the following to say regarding this. The official, that's Kikuchi, contacted Mr. Ibushi in the belief that Mr. Ibushi's actions in breach of his contract were taken deliberately to persuade New Japan Pro Wrestling to terminate its agreement with him. Perceiving this as a betrayal of personal trust established over a number of years, his messages were sent in an emotional state as a result. Obari then continued to say he met with Ibushi at Ibushi's training facility and discussed the matter while doing some light aerobics. In my brief meeting with Mr. Ibushi, we chatted while we conducted some light exercise. As we moved on the mat and participated in some jump training, I was amazed at his superhuman physical abilities, yet Ibushi confided that he found recovery from his 2021 shoulder injury was taking longer than he had expected, and that his range of motion was far from ideal. Mr. Ibushi explained to me that he had been invited to Just Tap Out by its manager Taka Michinoku. He also explained that while he was in the dressing room, he made an impulsive decision on his own accord to head to ringside and second the wrestlers. After receiving Mr. Ibushi's explanation, I reprimanded him, reminding him that this was a breach of his contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling, as well as a breach of licensing agreements we hold with other companies. Mr. Ibushi sincerely apologized for his actions. Mr. Ibushi's penalty for his breach was limited to a reprimand. Several weeks later, on May 10th, screenshots of the conversation on the Line service were made public. I have since learned that those tweets were made when Mr. Ibushi was acting in a state of concern for his mother, with mental distress being caused by this situation. Mr. Ibushi told me that after being contacted by his mother on May 8th and discussing the details of his situation with her, she attempted suicide on May 9th and suffered a broken bone in her back as a result. Obari then noted that Kikuchi, the New Japan Pro Wrestling executive dealing with Ibushi, will be reprimanded for the text message exchange with Ibushi. So Obari continued, I would now like to relay the company's stance on this situation. Mr. Ibushi's actions in attending an outside event without proper procedure, as well as publicly disclosing internal affairs, were actions in breach of his contract, and after consideration of the particulars I previously mentioned, an appropriate penalty for Mr. Ibushi will be determined. However, the words of the official in his text conversation were inexcusable, this is again talking about Kikuchi, especially in their direction to a wrestler who risks his life in order to fulfill his role as a professional. It is this mindset that directly led to Mr. Ibushi posting his critical tweets about the company. For the thoughtless content of these messages, we fully and unreservedly apologize to Mr. Ibushi. So this is interesting. So now the company is apologizing to Kota Ibushi for the comments made to him by Kikuchi. That's important. Bushi Road Director Takaki Kadani then spoke and suggested that he sincerely hopes Kota Ibushi returns to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He said, First, let me express my sincerest personal gratitude to Kota Ibushi for his contributions to New Japan Pro Wrestling and his thrilling matches in the ring. It is my sincerest hope that he continues to be connected to New Japan Pro Wrestling moving forward. However, his utmost priority at this time must be the care of his mother, as well as full recovery from his injury. It should go without saying that he will remain under contract for as long as that process takes. So Ibushi is not being released from his contract. The company then offered the following summation of the situation. Kota Ibushi is and will remain a key member of the New Japan Pro Wrestling roster. This kind of severe disagreement between company and talent should not happen again. in order to prevent any such instances in the future and ensure the best possible working environment for talent, we will be actively engaged in discussion with Mr. Ibushi about improving company policy and implementing proper procedure. So they are really trying to make amends with Kota Ibushi with these comments. We again would like to apologize to fans, wrestlers, and personnel for the concern and the disruption caused in the middle of the Best of the Super Junior tour. Kidani was later asked if the company and Ibushi have been able to reconcile their differences, to which Kidani replied, "I believe so. I don't know whether we can say things are fully reconciled, and I think there will be some issues that take time to mend. I can say that as far as I personally am concerned, there are no differences to reconcile. There never were, there aren't now, and I confirmed that when we met. I hope that we can get that relationship back up to 100% in time." Then, when asked about possible penalties for Kikuchi and Ibushi, Kidani responded that Ibushi was likely looking at a salary reduction for the posting of company secrets and appearance on a non-sanctioned event. As for Kikuchi, however, Kidani replied that he is looking at the very least we're considering a transfer to a different position. So at the very least, Kikuchi is going to be moved to a different position within the company. While the press conference itself seemed to suggest that everything is being worked out between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Kota Ibushi, Ibushi took to Twitter following it and had the following to say, suggesting that there was more to the story regarding his mother's suicide attempt. A translation of Ibushi's tweets reads, "Don't omit the parts you don't want to talk about," referring to the press conference. "The truth from the story from May 8th, I will talk in detail. Does my mother, who sensed her worries on May 8th, have any worries? As a result of talking about the circumstances from time to time, she suffered a hip fracture from an attempted suicide on May 9th. That was 95% of the tweets. Why did you omit it? I said yesterday that this wasn't right." And then in a later tweet he wrote, "No answer. A company that does only its own part will end someday. Some people may think that it is not necessary, and if you really want to punish, you can dismiss it. It's not that I don't want to do it. It doesn't make sense." So it does appear that there are still some significant issues between Ibushi and New Japan Pro Wrestling that need to be worked out. On the plus side, however, it does appear as though there has been an effort on both sides to work out those differences, and that at least on the New Japan Pro Wrestling side, they are hopeful that Kota Ibushi will return to the promotion. So we will keep you up to date on this situation. Just make sure you are subscribed to Spoiler Free Wrestling. Do not expect Kenny Omega to appear at Double or Nothing on Sunday. There was an injury update on Omega in this week's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Here is what Dave Meltzer had to write about Omega. He wrote, "Kenny Omega went to a couple of tapings in the last few weeks to work backstage, but in hindsight, the travel was too early for the healing needed for his injuries, and he won't be in Las Vegas this week for the pay-per-view show." Meltzer continued, "Omega did say that the parts of his body that are healthy, he is able to train well, and is pushing himself harder every week. Other parts, the healing is slow. He said that he's resigned to the fact that physically he will never be 100%, but he is looking at reversing some of the physical damage and being able to return, and this time off and fixing up his different injuries would extend his time as an effective pro wrestler. So, it remains to be seen if Kenny Omega is cleared in time to compete at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view on June 26th, but he will not be in Las Vegas for Double or Nothing." AEW's legit Leyla Hirsch suffered an ACL injury back in April. She posted to Twitter that she was finally able to get surgery to help correct the injury. She took to Twitter and wrote, "April 5th, during AEW Dark Elevation, I suffered an injury. After landing on my feet from a moonsault, I tore my ACL. Today, I was finally able to get my surgery. Thank you to everyone for their support. I promise to come back an improved, leaner, meaner, more legit athlete." Typical recovery time from a torn ACL is 6 to 9 months. Dark Order member Colt Cabana hasn't been seen on AEW programming in several months. The last time he performed for AEW was an episode of Dark back in March. However, he was on the Supercard of Honor pay-per-view on April 1st, where he defeated Blake Christian on the pre-show. Cabana's status with the company was addressed in the most recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Here is what Dave Meltzer wrote. Colt Cabana hasn't been on the show for a while, as he is earmarked for the ROH group if and when that starts. This may be in some form be related to his issues with CM Punk. Now, if you remember, CM Punk and Colt Cabana were both sued by WWE Dr. Chris Amon in 2015 as a result of Punk's comments about Amon and WWE's medical staff on an episode of Cabana's podcast. Cabana then filed suit against Punk in 2018, claiming that they had a verbal contract that Punk would cover Cabana's portion of the legal fees they incurred. Then in 2019, Punk filed a countersuit, and the two settled out of court that September. So Meltzer continued to say that Colt Cabana has signed a new contract with AEW, but that he is likely going to perform in Ring of Honor, assuming Ring of Honor gets back up and running. So Meltzer continued, Cabana was signed to a new contract, which was pushed for by Matt and Nick Jackson, and worked the ROH pay-per-view show, but has not been at any of the AEW tapings since his new deal was signed. So it looks like, if you're a fan of Colt Cabana, you are going to have to wait until Ring of Honor relaunches again to see him perform. More matches were added to Sunday's Double or Nothing event in Las Vegas as a result of what took place on AEW Rampage on Friday. In a backstage segment, Darby Allin challenged Kyle O'Reilly to a match on the show, although it has not yet been made official. Also, Scorpio Sky and American Top Team accepted the challenge laid out by Frankie Kazarian, Sammy Guevara, and Ty Conti for a mixed tag team match against the Men of the Year and Paige Van Zant, with the stipulation being that if the babyfaces lose, then Guevara can never challenge for the TNT Championship again. This match was confirmed, and Paige Van Zant will make her in-ring debut for AEW at Double or Nothing. We also confirmed the finals for the Women's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Finals, as Ruby Soho advanced in the Owen Hart Cup Tournament by defeating Chris Statlander. The finish of the match saw Soho take a bit of a shortcut. Knowing that Statlander had an injured shoulder and knee, Soho kicked both injured limbs and then wrapped her up in a pinning combination and got the 3 count. The live crowd in Las Vegas booed Soho afterwards for winning in such a way, but Soho moves on to the finals of the tournament to face Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. So let's just run down the full lineup for Sunday's card from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Over 13,000 fans will be in attendance, and the show brought in over $1 million in ticket revenue. Here are the matches for the card. On the pre-show, we will see Hook and Danhausen take on Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling. Assuming it's made official, we will see Kyle O'Reilly take on Darby Allin. For the AEW TBS Championship, Jade Cargill will defend against Anna Jay. In a 6-man tag team match, the House of Black, Malachi Black, Buddy Matthews, and Brody King, will take on Death Triangle, Pac, Penta Oscuro, and Rey Fenix. In a recently announced mixed tag team match, the American Top Team, Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and Paige Van Zant, along with Dan Lambert in their corner, will take on Sammy Guevara, Frankie Kazarian, and Ty Conti. In a tag team match, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, will take on the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. In a 3-way tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, the champions Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, will defend against Team Taz's Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, as well as Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. There will be an Anarchy in the Arena match, as the Jericho Appreciation Society, that's Chris Jericho, Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, Daniel Garcia, and Jake Hager, will take on Eddie Kingston, Santana, Ortiz, and the Blackpool Combat Club team of Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. In the Women's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Finals, we will see Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, against Ruby Soho. In the Men's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament Final, we will see Samoa Joe and Adam Cole. We will see MJF versus Wardlow, and if Wardlow wins, he is free of his contract from MJF, but if MJF wins, then Wardlow can never sign a contract with AEW. And for the AEW Women's World Championship, Thunder Rosa defends against Serena Deeb. And in the main event for the AEW World Championship, we will see Hangman Adam Page defend against CM Punk. Night 10 in the Best of the Super Juniors took place on Saturday. And after the conclusion of the event, each wrestler now only has 2 matches left in the round robin portion of the tournament. Let's go over Saturday's results. We saw Francesco Akira pick up his 3rd win. He defeated Yoshinobu Kanemaru. We saw Taiji Ishimori pick up his 5th win. He defeated Clark Connors. Teton picked up his 2nd win. He defeated Bushi. Taguchi also picked up his 2nd win. He defeated Yo. Sho picked up his 4th victory. He handed Ace Austin only his 2nd loss in the tournament thus far. Wheeler Yuta also picked up his 4th victory. He defeated Master Wato. El Phantasmo picked up his 5th victory. He defeated TJP. Robbie Eagles picked up his 4th victory. He defeated El Lindemann. Hiramu Takahashi picked up his 4th victory in the semi-main event. He defeated Alex Zane, so Takahashi gets off that losing skid he had been on. And in the main event, the Suzuki-gun teammates clashed, but El Desperado was able to pick up his 5th victory of the tournament. He defeated Doki. So let's take a look at the updated standings. So now looking at the A block first, there's a tie at the top with Ace Austin and Taiji Ishimori, both at 5 wins and 2 losses for 10 points. However, Austin holds the tiebreaker over Ishimori because he defeated them when they met in the round robin. Underneath them, we've got Alex Zane, Hiramu Takahashi, and Sho, all with 4 wins and 3 losses. Below them, we've got Yo, Clark Connors, and Francisco Akira. Not technically out of it just yet, but at 3 and 4, they would need a lot to happen to get into the running in the last couple of nights. And then mathematically eliminated already are Kanemaru and Taguchi. So Taguchi's promise of no butt stuff really didn't help him in this tournament. He did do a lot of butt stuff, but he is currently at the bottom of Block A. Not a good showing for Taguchi here. Then in Block B, we've got a tie at the top between El Desperado and El Phantasmo. They both have 5 wins and 2 losses. Below them, again, it's the same setup. We've got 3 wrestlers with 8 points. That's Robbie Eagles, El Lindemann, and Wheeler Yuta. Not mathematically eliminated, but close are Bushi, Doki, and TJP with 3 wins and 4 losses. And mathematically eliminated are Master Wato and Teton with 4 points apiece. The final 2 shows in the round robin portion of the Best of the Super Juniors will take place on Sunday and Tuesday. Here's the lineup for Sunday's show. In the first match, Master Wato, who is mathematically eliminated, will take on El Lindemann in B block action. El Lindemann still very much in the thick of things. He's at 4 wins and 3 losses, just 2 points off the lead. Then staying in the B block for the second match, it will be Teton, who is also mathematically eliminated, up against Doki, who isn't eliminated but is close at 3 wins and 4 losses. If he was to lose this or tie, he would be eliminated from contention. Then we go to the A block where Yo, who's at 3 wins and 4 losses, 4 points back of the lead, will take on Alex Zane, who's 4 wins, 3 losses, and very much in the thick of things, just 2 points off the lead. Back to the B block, we will see Bushi, who's 3 wins and 4 losses, against TJP, who's 3 wins and 4 losses. Whoever loses will be mathematically eliminated, and if they tie, they will both be mathematically eliminated. Back to the A block, Clark Connors is at 3 wins and 4 losses. If he loses to Hiramu Takahashi, he will be eliminated. Takahashi's still in the thick of things. Despite that 3-match losing streak, he sits at 4 wins and 3 losses, just 2 points off the pace. Staying in the A block, Taguchi is eliminated at 2 wins and 5 losses, but he's going up against Ace Austin, who currently leads the pack with 10 points and holds the tiebreaker over Taiji Ishimori. So Ace Austin looking to make a run in his last 2 round-robin matches. We go back to the B block where Wheeler Yuta is at 4 wins and 3 losses, still very much in the thick of things. and would definitely like to finish above 500 in his first Best of the Super Juniors, but he's going up against El Phantasmo, who is currently tied for the lead in the B block with El Desperado, and those two will face each other in the final night of the round robin. Then we go back to the A block, where Kanemaru, who is mathematically eliminated, will go up against Sho, who's 4-3 and just 2 points off the lead. Then in the semi-main event, we will see Francesco Akira, who's 3-4 and 4 points off the lead, go up against Taiji Ishimori, who is at 10 points and tied for the lead in Block A, but does not have the tiebreaker against Ace Austin, so is currently second in the block. And then in the main event, we will see Robbie Eagles, who is at 4 wins and 3 losses, just 2 points off the pace. If he beats El Desperado, he will move ahead of him in the rankings, as El Desperado is at 5 wins and 2 losses and is tied with El Phantasmo. And that's going to do it for this video, everyone. Make sure you're subscribed to Spoiler Free Wrestling for all your wrestling news.